Well, today I'd like to talk about how to use intermittent fasting to boost your immune system. Whether you have cancer, allergies, autoimmune conditions, inflammatory conditions in your gut like celiac, Crohn's disease, and IBS, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and this really speaks to every inflammatory condition right down to the common cold. You need to do intermittent fasting because intermittent fasting stimulates the whole blood cell, the white blood cell. It activates macrophages, neutrophils, monocytes, killer T cells, and since 80% of your immune system is located in your gut, and that includes a lot of your lymphatics. So it's very important that we pay attention to strengthening our immune systems. We've been told that all disease begins in the gut, and this is largely because we are eating too frequently, which is constantly irritating the gut by raising insulin levels, and the insulin creates little holes in your intestines called leaky gut syndrome. Now this raises havoc with your immune system because undigested food, fecal material, bacteria, and candida are then allowed to escape the gut and enter your bloodstream, which puts your immune system under constant attack. So eating less frequently together with intermittent fasting strengthens your immune system. The next thing that intermittent fasting will do is improve something called autophagy. Now that's spelled AUTOPHAGY. The Nobel Prize in Medicine for 2016 went exactly to this topic. Autophagy is a condition whereby your cells are recycling damaged parts and cleaning up debris, including infected cells, viruses, yeast, mold, bacteria, and fungus, out of the cell. Now, baby boomers have been subjected to more procedures, more surgeries, more drugs. They've had more chronic diseases and are fatter than any generation ever before documented. Autophagy may be one of the greatest discoveries in science in a long, long time, and fasting is what turns on this natural phenomenon. Fasting cleans up the garbage in your body, and it strengthens your immune system at the same time. So allergies, gut inflammatory conditions, especially autoimmune, celiac, Crohn's, you definitely need to do intermittent fasting. Even cancer. Did you realize that a cancer cell has up to 70 times more insulin receptors than a normal cell? You are lowering your insulin when you're doing intermittent fasting. You're correcting insulin resistance. It's not just about losing weight, which fasting will do. It's about improving your immune system. And also, as you correct insulin resistance, you increase the absorption of nutrients, which also then enhances the immune system. Too often when people get sick, instead of fasting and allowing their body to rest, they start taking medications and perhaps even eat even more frequently, which just puts an added burden on your body. It is already overloaded and fighting to detoxify, so I highly recommend intermittent fasting as a way to not only give your body a rest, but also to strengthen your immune system so it's better able to fight whatever is making you sick. And when I talk about fasting, I'm talking about water fasting, and so we'll talk a little bit about our hydration drops here momentarily and how that can help to hydrate your body. But cancer cells have between 10 to 70 times the number of glucose and insulin receptors as a regular cell, which means they are 10 to 70 times more likely to be susceptible to the negative effects of glucose. Now, this is exactly why fasting is so critical, not only to the prevention of cancer, but also to cancer treatment. Fasting is extremely powerful when it comes to dictating how a cell creates energy. Fasting helps normal cells to utilize fat as a source of fuel for creating energy significantly better through manipulation of the mitochondria within the cell. Comparing the difference between cancer cells and healthy cells helps us to understand exactly why fasting has such a profound effect on potentially treating cancer. Cancer cells cannot utilize aerobic metabolism. What does this mean? It means that cancer cells can't utilize fats as a source of fuel. They can't create energy by combining oxygen with fat, whereas a normal cell in the body can. Cancer cells get almost all of their energy through a process known as phosphorylation, which means it's the fermentation of glucose or the fermentation of glutamine that essentially ends up giving a cancer cell energy. What does that mean? That means that cancer cells thrive on glucose, sugar, carbohydrate, and this isn't a carbohydrate bashing session, So don't get me wrong, it's not what I'm doing at all. I'm just saying that a cancer cell is 10 times to 70 times more likely to utilize that sugar in a negative way simply because the insulin receptors are that much more readily available. They're on a traditionally than they are on a traditional healthy human cell. So when it comes down to a healthy cell can go ahead and utilize fats whenever it wants to, whereas a cancer cell ends up saying, wait a minute, I can't use fats. I'm going to use more sugar and become more efficient at using sugar. To start making some more sense of this outside of just the whole glucose side of things, there was a study that University of Southern California conducted that was published in the journal called Cancer Cells. And this study took a look at gene expression, which is a pretty interesting thing. It took a look at regulatory T cells. We have in our body what are called T cells. They go around and they slap labels on foreign bodies to have other T cells come around later and kill them. That is basically how our immune systems work to fight off disease and foreign bodies. Cancer cells are essentially a foreign body. Cancer cells originate inside of our bodies. We all have them, but if our immune system is strong enough, it will destroy the cancer cells before they can proliferate and do any damage. But when our immune system is compromised and we have cancer cells that start to proliferate and start to metastasize, we end up having an upregulation of T cell activity. In other words, we have a lot of T cells. But the other thing that we have to pay attention to is that our body is very good at adapting, and that means that even though cancer cells are bad once they make a home in our bodies welcome them in and do things to protect them, which means we start creating specific T cells that will actually protect the cancer cells. You ever wonder why cancer is so hard to fight? Because cancer does a really good job of hijacking our immune system and making it so that it still is really difficult to target. In an earlier conversation, we talked about also how the pancreas produces proteolytic enzymes which digest protein, and cancer cells tend to build a protein sheath around themselves, and so the immune system can't actually detect that the cancer cells are harmful. And so probably we should be taking a proteolytic or protease enzyme when we're eating any kind of protein in order to help the body break down these protein shells around the cancer cells. But these specific T cells actually protect cancer cells, and through fasting, USC found that it ended up downregulating specific gene expression of something known as the H01 gene inside of a regulatory T cell. Basically what that means is after a short period of fasting, the T cells that normally protect cancer cells were reduced, sometimes even completely eradicated, meaning that adjunct treatment with vitamin C, natural products, good hydration are going to be more powerful when it comes to getting rid of cancer. And that's just a short-term fast. Studies haven't even been conducted on longer-term fasting, and the results could be even more profound when fasting for a longer period of time. So now let's take a look at overall fasting metabolism on a healthy cell and fasting metabolism on a cancer cell. So like I mentioned, a cancer cell doesn't have the ability to vacillate back and forth between aerobic and anaerobic metabolism of sugar. So what happens when we starve ourselves of carbohydrates through fasting is we dramatically reduce our glucose and insulin concentrations within our bodies, which essentially starves the cancer cells of energy, and they become very weak. And since all of your healthy cells can receive energy from stored fats in your body, they will actually tend to grow stronger for the first 9 to 10 days of a water fast. Many of the cancer cells will already have died due to the fact that they have had no sugar to keep them alive, and that's how fasting affects the metabolism of a cancer cell. Last, we have to look at inflammation and how it relates to digestion. When we eat food, it takes a big toll on our bodies. Now, I'm not saying you should never eat, but the fact is many people today are in the habit of constantly grazing. Most people eat at least 3 to 4 square meals a day, and then they snack in between meals. This practice is really hard on our bodies. We may not feel it, but it's increasing the inflammatory level within the body. And when you're fasting, you're reducing the production of what is called interleukin-6, which is a very powerful stimulator for inflammation. And you're also reducing something known as tumor necrosis factor 1 alpha. And just like the name implies, tumor necrosis factor 1 alpha is directly related to the production of cancer and tumors. So when you reduce the production of that through not eating, not only are you strengthening your immune system's ability to kill cancer cells, but you starve existing cancer cells of their source of energy, and you're also reducing the production of cancer cells in the first place. So at the end of the day, fasting is not only a tremendous way to help treat cancer in adjunct with proper hydration and nutrition, and in the future we can talk about what foods to eat if you have cancer, and really all diseases have the same cause. It's just that the medical profession has put such a scare into people who are diagnosed with cancer because it's one of their biggest cash cows that I really like to target this one subject. So let's talk a little bit about some of our products and how they might relate to people who have cancer or other problems. Hydration definitely is the key thing. If we did nothing but drink a lot of water and get well hydrated, that would eliminate a lot of disease by itself. When we drink traditional, typical tap water or purified water, spring water, they say that only about 2 to 3% of that's getting inside of the cells. We need to greatly increase that. We have plenty of water going on the outside of the cells, extracellular. We need intracellular hydration. So by adding the hydration drops, it's actually increasing the ionic exchange at the water channel of the cell, and perhaps increasing by several hundred to thousands of times the amount of water that can get through the water channel. This is extremely important because when we get water inside of the cell, that's how we get nutrition in. The only way we get nutrition in the cell is when it's in water. When we get water inside of the cell, there's a mechanism there that can actually split off the hydrogen and oxygen. When you split hydrogen and the water molecule, it turns into oxygen and hydrogen. A lot of people are, they're doing things to their water to add more hydrogen to the water or to add more oxygen to the water. That's really not the issue. The issue is getting the water inside of the cell because the cell has the mechanism to create all of the oxygen and all of the hydrogen that it possibly needs. The hydrogen is necessary as a free radical scavenger to get rid of the toxic elements. The oxygen is basically there to fire the furnace that creates the ATP or the energy for the cell. So that's 3 factors. And then when we get water inside of the cell, we're actually washing out the interior of the cell. When we're producing energy in the cell, we also have byproducts of that energy. And those become toxic. If we're not getting water in, we basically are creating a cesspool effect. The water inside of the cell gets very toxic. So we need that water exchange to clean those toxins out of the water. And when we do that, and we get the cell well hydrated, it's going to maintain a normal pH of about 7.2 to 7.4. Next, let's talk about our Siaga. Siaga is made of 3 very powerful herbs, 2 of which are very, very important to people with a compromised immune system, which quite often turns into cancer and many other problems. Siaga is one of the first products I would take on a regular basis if my immune system was compromised. If I had cancer, I definitely would be, if I could only get 2 products, it would probably be the hydration water and the Siaga for that particular condition. Copper is a very important mineral. It's important for the thyroid. If you have a thyroid condition, it's going to be one of 2 things. Typically, it's a lack of iodine or a lack of copper. Quite often people are taking an iodine supplement and still they're having a problem with their thyroid where they're probably lacking copper. Copper is also necessary for the production of red blood cells and also for the keeping your blood vessels healthy and elastic. So very important to our circulatory system. But another important thing that copper does is it gets rid of iron. There are those who say that there's an iron poisoning behind every disease. I don't know if that's 100% true, but it's probably, it's a very high percentage, I'm sure. And we have a lot of the producers of foods today that are adding iron to their foods. All of your flour products, your bread products, pastas, etc., all your cereal products pretty much have iron added. A lot of your protein drinks and even health foods are adding iron to their products. So this is something you need to look for. You need to eliminate those things from your diet. If you can get rid of the iron, get the copper in there to replace it, it's going to go a long ways toward getting you healthy. Men who have prostate problems, it's typically because of iron poisoning or stainless steel poisoning. And what happens is these metals collect in the prostate. This is, for whatever reason, the prostate tends to absorb the iron and stainless steel. And wherever you have iron, you have bacteria. So you have an overgrowth of bacteria that's going to cause inflammation. It's going to cause swelling of the prostate and potentially lead to cancer as well. So let's be sure we're taking copper for the health of the prostate as well. Pure mag and decal are two minerals that are usually lacking in people who have cancer. In fact, scientists who are doing experiments with rats, the way they produce tumors in rats is just taking them off of magnesium, and they will definitely get tumors. So those are two very important minerals. They're also minerals that are involved with keeping the calcium mobile in your body, keeping the calcium in your bones and teeth where it belongs, and keeping it out of your joints, which causes arthritis, etc. Vitalize. This is a product that I would definitely be taking. One thing is the B12. B12 it tends to be lacking in all cancer patients, B12 and B17, but we have very high doses of B12 in the Vitalize, and we definitely need more B12 than we're getting. Most people are deficient in vitamin B12, and that's one reason that you're going to see an effect from Vitalize right away. The egg extract in the Vitalize is more of something that builds over a period of time. You want to be taking this on a continual basis so that you have the building blocks for every cell in your body. And you have the different growth hormones inside of the Vitalize. So this is a product that really is so foundational to everything, to every cell of your body, to your brain. We've had people tell us what great results they're getting from dementia, from memory loss, and that type of thing. One thing that tends to happen in these different brain diseases is fluoride, for example, creates holes in the brain, makes the brain look something like Swiss cheese. You're actually missing part of your brain. So we need the 22 amino acids in the Vitalize to help repair and replace those cells that are missing. Silver is an important mineral when it comes to any kind of inflammation, any kind of bacteria, viruses, which definitely is going on in most cancer patients, all cancer patients. Doctors have used silver by itself intravenously to get rid of cancer. The problem with these type of treatments, silver and gold, is that they're so inexpensive that once that they prove that they work, they basically lock that information away so nobody can find it. But in various different studies, clinicals that they've done, silver has been used to get rid of cancer. Gold has been used by itself to get rid of cancer. Another thing that gold does, is claimed to do, is to help repair the DNA. And I believe this is actually true because I've had scar tissue go away. We've had many people tell us that their scar tissue is gone. Scar tissue they've had for 40, 50 years, totally gone away. And the only way that can happen is through repairing of DNA. Nature's Nutrients is another powerful product for repairing the immune system, helping to heal up the gut. We talked about the insulin causing holes in the gut. So does the candida. Overgrowth of candida will cause the little holes in the gut. So will GMO foods. Many things that we're really we're subjected to is things that are eating up our gut, causing this leaky gut syndrome, and that's just leading to so many problems. Any of the autoimmune diseases. So what's happening is all these things are traveling, getting into the bloodstream, and then they're being deposited in the muscle tissues and causing fibromyalgia and around the nerves and causing multiple sclerosis, and in the brain causing a lack of memory and all kinds of different problems, confusion and suicidal tendencies, on and on. So Nature's Nutrients is the most powerful product probably for healing up the gut and normalizing the immune system. So the beauty of the Nature's Nutrients, if your immune system is attacking your body, it tends to tone it down. If your immune system is weak, it tends to strengthen it. So this is one great product to have on hand and be using on a daily basis. We're actually in the process of creating a new video for Nature's Nutrients, so that's going to be a great tool to add to our arsenal of promotional tools.